All right, we're live. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we got Tess Helmandollar on, who's the president of the Cognitive Creative. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I'd really love to just kind of dive right into it and for you to just share kind of a background. I know it's a little bit a personal, it's a bit emotional, but it also created opportunity of business for you. But could you just kind of break down your story of kind of how you got to building the Cognitive Creative and why
Sure.
you decided to do it, which I think is very fascinating and intriguing and motivating story.
Thank you. It's kind of in two parts. I started in marketing almost naturally. I went to school for journalism and I ended up in the ads department of a newspaper. And really, I think, is where I first noticed, and this is back in like the early 90s, that people didn't really know how to market their businesses. And interestingly enough, for me at the time, I wasn't trying to be a marketer. I was just being like, maybe you shouldn't put that in your ad. You know, maybe this should look better.
Probably from a consumer perspective, right?
Yeah,
Of
like,
like, if I am looking at this for your
yeah,
business, like, this doesn't make sense to me, it's not gonna make sense to other people.
right. And so I put myself through school as a dental assistant, which is something that
Nice.
is a weird segue. But even in working in dentistry, I found myself more interested in like, well, how can we get more patients?
Yeah.
How can we create better experiences? This is before Google and reviews or anything. In the very early 2000s, I started a horse magazine. I had been a equestrian as a young girl, and because of the newspaper, sent out to a horse rescue and started getting back into horses and started picking up big national magazines and realizing that they don't ever feature anyone from the South in national horse magazines. And at the time, the South had more horses per capita than anywhere else in the United States. So it was weird that we were excluded from a lot of the articles and stuff. And my husband, who was new to me at the time, my new husband at the time, goes, "Well, start your own magazine." And I always say he didn't know me very well at that moment because that's exactly what I did. I started my own magazine. And that's where I really got into like marketing. Now, as this is going on, my dad, who is an entrepreneur as well, was always there for me. My mom and dad, for every um, like trade show we would go to with the magazine, my mom and dad were right there. They drove the motor home. They helped me take care of my kids. They helped put the booth up. My dad sold subscriptions, but my dad was an HVAC contractor. He had a really thriving HVAC business, and in 2008, well, 2008 was bad on a lot of levels, but the magazine kinda went kaputty because the economy crashed
Yep.
and the market fell out of the horse industry. So overnight, I kinda lost all my advertisers. And it was at that point that I started helping people with marketing because I had done that as a magazine publisher, because it was the same concept as when I worked for the newspaper. People would come to me, "I wanna put an ad in your magazine," and then they would send me some, like, photocopied little terrible looking thing, and I started advising people, and I learned so much also from my dad who ran a successful business, and then I have a family of entrepreneurs, so kinda in my blood. You just cumulatively learn over time, right? So by 2014, I had started the Cognitive Creative and I was helping anyone. I was a generalist. And if you needed marketing done, if you needed an email, you needed ads, whatever, I got all the certifications. I started doing all the things. And then some tragedy. We were doing really well. And some tragedy happened, and my dad in 2018 had a stroke. And all along, James, I had been being talking to my dad like, "You need to sell maintenance contracts, dad. We need to." I built him a website, but he didn't want to answer emails, so I didn't even have an email capture. I'd be like, "You need an email capture. You need this." And he's like, "I am here to help you. You are not here to help me." So I went along my merry way. He had a stroke in 2018, and fortunately, he was okay. It was a brainstem stroke, which should have killed him. He had some cognitive issues that we blamed on the stroke. Later on, we found out much later on, we found out it was actually probably early onset Alzheimer's
Mm,
that was causing the cognitive issues. But he had to shut his business down, and he did that because he was a man of integrity. He could
yeah.
have probably hired some, techs to do all the calls, but when it came to the point where he was like, "I can't go behind them and fix an issue if there is one, so I can't continue to do this." I tried to sell his business. I gathered up all his 300 customers in stacks of carbonless invoices and went to 2 larger companies, and they insulted me. Not really, but I felt insulted at the time and offered me what they were getting for like a form fill on Google. And that
Wow.
was with my dad's endorsement. My dad was willing to call his customers up and say, "You need to use XYZ company. I'm closing my business down."
Right.
So they offered us $24 per customer.
Wow. Unreal.
I'm usually pretty good at separating the emotion from things, but in that moment, I was not. And I didn't really do anything there except for I started to help more trades type businesses. I started to slowly go, you know what? I think I want to help people like my dad more than I want to help realtors and Tom, Dick, and Harry and
Sure.
anything that was coming down the pike, right? And then in 2024, after a battle with Alzheimer's disease, my dad passed away.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that.
And I was on a mission, James, to do anything I could to honor him. I started a networking group, wasn't ready for that. Too many people. And I just wasn't ready for the interaction.
Sure.
Successful networking group, but imagine being grief stricken and then all these people come in and you're like,
Yeah. Yeah. Not the right
gosh, now
timing.
I have to talk to people.
Yeah. Not the right
Just
time
was
and place.
Yeah, I just wasn't ready for that. And I sat down in, I think, September of 2024, and I was just going to write a white paper on how to evaluate your business, how to
Mm,
understand the value of your business.
sure.
And I started writing and I started writing. It escalated quickly from a white paper to I finally looked down after writing for a couple days and I'd written 20,000 or so words. And then I was like, oh, this is a book.
Yeah.
And it was both a tribute and a mission to help people like my dad build businesses that will outlast them. And so since then, not only are we at the Cognitive Creative helping more general contractors and tradespeople with their marketing, and we still have people that we help that are not in those sectors,
Yeah.
and on a mission to educate your average trades businesses about making sure they build transferable value in their business.
Hmm.
Part of that's marketing, sure, but part of it is getting all of the stuff that's up here in your head documented somehow.
Yep. Systems,
And so,
processes,
well,
playbooks, all that. Yeah.
yeah, long story long.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think it's amazing story and how you navigated all that and then how you created a new opportunity and a new solution to really like honor your dad and really help other people that are probably in his similar position.
I'm trying.
So, yeah, I think it's amazing. What do you think were some of the big, like, obviously, a totally different business he was running. He's running an HVAC business. You're running a marketing business. But what were some of like, what's just some general, maybe business principles, practices you learned from your dad that you apply to your business today?
Well, I don't know what kind of listeners you have, but the first thing that my dad taught me about business is that you never dick with a man's money. My dad was Navy, military guy, so, I mean, I'll never forget that, he's writing out an invoice for somebody, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, "Oh, shouldn't you charge him more than that?" And he was like, "You don't ever dick with a man's money." And that has been a tenet in my business
Yep.
from the get-go. You say you're gonna do. I mean, just kind of the golden rules, right? Leave things better than you found them, and people first, always. My
Yeah,
dad always
absolutely.
said people first, whether they work for you or whether you're helping them. People come before everything. And it's not that you don't want to make money. It's not that you don't want to be profitable. It's not that you don't want to have systems in place and make sure that your phone calls get answered with automation or whatever, but you have to have a people first approach to everything you do because you don't build relationships with automated emails. You don't build relationships with voice answering machines. You build relationships with people. And I think those are the most valuable things that he taught me as a business person.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I think it always starts with trust. Yeah, do your clients, your customers trust you, especially when you have a closer relationship, like you're going in their home and installing and servicing them, or even if you're in like a service-based business like yourself in a marketing business type relationship, you're working very closely with them and you're helping them like that's their baby, is their business, is like trying to do
Absolutely.
what's best for them in that situation. When did you make the pivot to like really focusing in on like the trades? Was that early on, like, kind of when you saw that your dad kinda needed help in that, and obviously he was in his ways and he was doing fine, so he was kinda continuing on, but when do you make that kind of pivot of being a generalist to the HVAC and
You
the
know,
trades and all that?
I think I'm still pivoting every day. I think that, first things become an idea, right?
Sure,
This is where I want to go. And then actually getting out there and changing your collateral. Um, it sort of happened, I don't know, like a current
sure.
pulling me in that direction more than me pivoting. And now we have 3 or 4 general contractors that we help, and we're just starting to onboard, like, the individual, what I would call, like, a subcontractor
Hmm,
of a general contractor.
yeah,
And I do a lot of talks at chambers and things like that, where maybe those people aren't my clients yet, but I'm starting to help those people. I had just a couple of months ago, I had an hour-long conversation with a roofer, and he's not hired us yet, but I helped him, and it was beneficial for him, and I learned a lot of pain points from him that I didn't know roofers had. So, I think it's just an evolution more than a pivot.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's a big trend, and it's been happening for a long time. But I think there's big opportunities of being a specialist agency for a specific industry and really knowing that industry well, because you can create better systems and processes for that industry, for their needs, and really understand like their problems and what the solutions are, rather than trying to serve everybody. Right? You start your career, I think like a lot of people do, is like I'm going to try to serve everything. I'll take any opportunity, but as you go on, you realize that it's actually better, smarter, and easier to focus, I think, oftentimes on either one specialty. Like my agency, we just do one specialty service, and we're really good at that one specialty service, which is ad buying. And then you could also go to, we're going to be the best for this specific industry, this vertical. And yeah, I think that's a great way to
I
go.
think that people like me and people that start agencies end up being a generalist in maybe not only who they serve, but what they do
What they do too, right?
out of fear of not having enough
Yep.
to come in to feed, to feed their team or feed themselves. So they're like, if somebody's like, "Can you do this?" And then you're like, "Absolutely."
Right. Yeah, I don't wanna say no to any sale opportunity. I'm gonna take it
Right.
all on, even though that might hold you down from creating a better system or process sales ability for what you're actually really, really good at. So it's hard to say no to new business
Yeah.
at any level.
And so it has taken me some time, to get my own mindset right about being able to create a niche, and even this mission to help tradespeople, because it's not just helping them with their businesses, it's helping the industry as a whole because of the skills gap that's happening within the construction industry at large. I want to speak to those things too because it's important for our communities to recognize how important the trades are to the continuity of our lives. And we've poo pooed them and put them in the back seat and said, go to college. And I'm not knocking college, I went to college, but we've really made the trades seem like a back seat or a fallback option when these are people who solve complex problems before you and I eat breakfast most
Yep.
days. Um, so fallback, schmallback, like these are brilliant people who may not be as well. They may not have read Faulkner, but they can smell a dead circuit
100%. They
and
can do
ferret it out
things
in a wall.
we cannot do, and they just
Yeah,
have a different skill set and knowledge in something that we don't. But I think it really comes back down to marketing. To me, as what I look at it, is that the universities have done a better job at marketing higher education degrees than the trades have. And so
agreed.
I think it's really a marketing challenge and issue where there's obviously multiple layers, but I look at everything through a marketing lens. But I think it's really the university's done a phenomenal job of marketing themselves get people to go. And at the end of the day, they are a business. The
And
universities are
lobbying,
business. Whether they're public or private, I don't care. They're a business and they're trying to advertise
of
to
course.
students to come to their school and pay their tuition, which often gets a lot of people into $100,000 of debt and a low quality degree, unfortunately, versus the trades, I think just haven't done a good job of marketing themselves to the next generation to come in. And I think, believe you were talking about before of
Yeah.
the elevator technician who is like problem solving everything. And you ask him like, are you training somebody else? And he's like, nope,
Nope.
nobody is here to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a massive skills gap. So my daughter-in-law, her dad owns a large commercial HVAC company in Florida near the Space Coast. In fact, he does a lot of work with those companies on the Space Coast, which I won't mention. But he said, man, I'm ate up with helpers, but I don't have any in between people. So he's the master technician. So he's still running wide open because his helpers, he has to teach his helpers because there's no in
There's
between.
that transfer of knowledge isn't there. So he's got people who help, but there's a skill gap
Yes.
from what he's able to do to them. So
Yes.
he needs to train those people up.
And do all the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Train them up and do all the work because he's still very much running wide open doing all the work. And that's just one of many out there. And then you have elevator guy who has no one to train because no one even thought, "Oh, maybe I should be an elevator technician."
Yeah. Which makes you think that there is thousands of jobs and opportunities out there. It's just a matter of pushing people into the right
Into that.
field that they're best at. And that makes me also think that I think in our industry and just in kind of a lot of different businesses, especially online businesses that you were predominantly working through the internet, is that we may develop into a skill gap issue because I think a lot of people are relying a lot on AI rather than training and hiring a junior entry level position that normally would have done those jobs. And in 10, 20 years, if you don't have those entry level people that come in and do the kind of more entry level work and then learn the strategy, learn the principles of marketing or whatever other businesses they're working in from their superiors or managers, etc., then we're not going to have that people in 10, 20 years to take over those positions as
I
well.
think
I think the
not
same thing's going to happen in our industry.
I think so, and also in communication because people are relying on AI to have difficult conversations for them.
Right.
Like, they'll go on to AI and be like, "Hell, I need to write this tersely worded email. Help me." And they'll let AI write it, and then they can't do that in person. They
Yep.
can't sit down with someone and be at a crossroads with them and work through a problem together. I mean, you see now, my daughter's 25 and her dad and I were on phones the other day when she came to visit. She was like, "You kids and your phones." And I'm like, "But yeah, like my children, my youngest son is 22. Fortunately, I taught them to converse, but some of their peers are not,
Yep.
they're not conversationalists
Yeah.
and they're afraid of public facing communication. And
Right.
so
Yeah. They're
not
all
only
trapped
a
behind a
skills
screen.
gap, but a
Yeah.
soft skills gap,
Yeah.
which soft skills will get you way further in life than hard skills will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, those are foundational pieces, I think, that all the other skills stack up on. But
Absolutely.
if you don't have that foundational skill of being able to converse and communicate and talk, that's a foundational skill that you can't build sales skills on top of. You can't build marketing skills on top of. You can't build, being an operator or a manager on top of if you don't have good communication skills. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a huge issue, but the people who figure it out are going to succeed. They're going to just outpace
Absolutely.
everybody else.
And that's good to know as well.
But they'll still have good opportunities. But yeah, that's why I think I heard a really good advice is just basically don't let AI think for you. I think that's a good advice for a lot of young people who are like coming in and trying to, is that you want to use it and it is technology that gives you some leverage where you can do more with less, or you can do more in a shorter period of time, which is great, but don't let it think for you. Like I use it mainly as like a way to research. Like what I used to be able to have to take me hours to research and to read a bunch of articles that can synthesize things very quickly for me. But then that is just to extract and gain information and then make critical decisions or choices off of that. So I think the not letting it think for you is the key principle to have when using it.
Absolutely. I think that critical thinking is in short supply as well
Hmm.
already. So we definitely don't need to lean into that, to use our own brains to come up with our own ideas. And I'm with you. I will use AI for research, or even a quick list of ideas that I can make my own judgment whether I want to pursue or not. Uh, so it takes some of the tax off of you sometimes that you know um, you used to have, and I definitely enjoy it for, like, can you marry these spreadsheets? Uh, you know, that type of busy work, but I hope that we can find an ethical and, more purposeful way that enhances society to use AI than continuing to degrade it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way I really look at it and the way we use it internally in our agency is we always talk about humans and machines. What do humans do well? What do machines do well? Machines do really well at crunching large volumes of data and information, synthesizing it, aggregating it, automating things. Humans make better decisions at contextual relevance to a specific problem. Like, we can extract all that information and then we can decide like the right taste and flavor we need to apply to a situation for our clients or whatever problem that we're trying to solve. Because at the end of the day, as business owners, entrepreneurs, businesses in general, we're trying to solve people's problems. And so we're just trying to figure out, how do we solve people's problems faster? And I think that's what the AI and what technology allows us to do, is solve
Agree.
people's problems much faster.
I think so too, and don't get me wrong, I absolutely, like, enjoy a lot of the interactions I have with AI. I think of it like this. If you hurt your back, and you'll wear a back brace so that you don't bend wrong,
Hmm.
but if you wear that back brace too long, it will weaken your back, and your back will not be stronger because of it. So, I think of AI like that. Like, don't use it as a crutch in any way, really, because it will make your own processes weaker.
100%. There's already a lot of data coming out about that, is that looking at people who've used AI for a prolonged period of time to write a paper or do whatever, and then they try to do the same task without the AI, and their brain's just not
They're
firing
like,
as
yeah,
fast.
404 error.
Yeah.
Does not compute.
So I think I think that analogy totally nails it. Of, if you become too reliant on it, you're just going to weaken your mind to a place where you're not going to be able to think or be productive.
Yeah. And then what are we?
Yeah. Then what are we doing? Uh, Thinking back just on your career, I wanted to ask you earlier, but you started out newspaper, started the magazine, all of those. Obviously, we have all this technology change, but what I'm always curious about is people's, like, their story and their history of like what they've done before, to what they're doing now. Is, I think there's certain principles that remain consistent in marketing and advertising and business in general, regardless of what technology landscape you're in. But what do you think some of those like early principles or skills that you learned when you're doing newspaper advertising, magazine advertising early in your career, that you're still applying to this day for your own
Sure.
business, for your clients?
So I'm from the very late 1900s, back when we put newspapers together by literally cutting out the article, typing it, cutting it out, putting wax on the back of it, and putting it on there with a little roly thing. And then I used to come home covered in border tape, because we would put, literally, there used to be rows and rows of border tape that you used to put a newspaper together. And
Yeah.
newspapers used to be made with plates. So I think, though, in having to be that physical and layout and design has helped me even in the digital set, because I break down a layout all the way back to that. And, it's wild that, even like, I think the first thing I ever nerded out on digitally was Photoshop, because I could
Mhm.
create in layers. And if you can only put so many layers on a newspaper before you have a little stack of paper, and the press people come and yell at you, like, you can't do that. You can't put that many things on there. Sorry,
Trying to make it look good.
trying to make it
trying to
look good.
trying to catch people's attention.
Yeah. So I think that design principles for sure. and where your eye goes, because of the way we read, usually the way we scan, those things really haven't changed. And so the principles of, making sure that there's a focal point when we're designing, or even what we write, even what words appear where, right? Those things have stuck with me over time. But more than anything, it's the relationships. For everything we do is more about relationship than we realize. Even if it's 100% digital and a person doesn't talk to a person, there's still, what do they call them, pseudo relationships. There's some science around that too, where people feel like they have these parasympathetic I don't know. My daughter would know. There's a word for it, but where you follow somebody on Instagram and you have a relationship with them, but you never met them, but still, it's curating those relationships and those experiences and the way you make people feel, and that all harkens back to marketing and how you speak to people and the messages that you craft and how you wanna make people feel, and that definitely started in the newspaper industry for me, more in journalism than marketing, and when I would interview people, because sometimes you interview people and you want to make them feel at ease because you want to hear their story like we're doing today, right? But sometimes you have to interview the sheriff about lies he told, and you don't want him to feel at ease. That's a different demeanor. It's a different message and it's a different article. So those dichotomies back in the day definitely play into how I do things today and how I'm able to be pretty objective and see things. Sometimes I'm objective to a fault though. I wear myself out being so objective. But being objective, but then also being able to swing the pendulum has served me incredibly well in this industry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's really how you guide yourself with different relationships of who you work with, and then also clients, customers, and then just how that emotional context, I think, is just really valuable to have. And what's challenging, I think, today is like you only learn that by being in office and working with people and regularly meeting with people. It's harder to learn it if you're only communicating digitally or through email or through text messages.
I think we lose so much context, even like
Yeah,
my team's virtual. We
yeah,
use Slack, and it's the same thing when you've like accidentally gotten in a text fight with someone
right.
because you said something quickly because you were trying to get in your car and they asked you a question and you were just like, "Bloop," and they were like, "Why are you
Yep.
so short with me?"
Yeah,
The same thing happens in Slack and things get
right.
taken out of context. And I think that speaks to where people are in their own journeys.
100%.
I'm writing a new book. I started over the holidays about kind of those interactions and mistakes I've made as a leader. But I think the main thing that we have to think about in any of that is that we can't be so myopic in our view of even what text says in those types of communications. We have to think about where people are coming from and, what they might be doing. But it makes it very challenging to learn and but it makes it more compelling,
Yeah,
right?
yep,
So if it's challenging to learn because of the digital landscape, it's incumbent upon you to try to gain more emotional intelligence so that you can handle things better and create better messaging as a marketer or better perspectives in dealing with your teammates.
yep, absolutely. Just looking ahead next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, like, what are you excited about? What are some of the opportunities you see for your industry or the trades businesses?
Well, what I'm excited about is that there is a little bit of a resurgence of interest in the trades.
Mhm.
So, what I hope that I can be a part of is helping founders document their knowledge. And that's where I do think that AI comes into play. I think
Mhm.
that you could you could sit down with a founder and you could ask them to tell their story just like I'm telling my story to you, which starts to help develop a voice around that founder. I think that you can then take any kind of existing SOPs that are in the company and weigh them against what you learn about that founder to find out if their guiding documents even reflect the founder right now, or did Angie, who worked for us 10 years ago, write this and nobody liked her anyway. And that's where that document came from. I think really synthesizing what's in a founder's head, how they like to do things. their decision architecture, how they make decisions so that you can set the stage for the future. And it's not that you want to do everything just like Joe the plumber did, but these businesses are these people's babies, and they're feeding the communities. So if you want to honor them and what they've done and the sacrifices that they made, at least you have a way to do that and you're not guessing at it. So I'm really excited about being able to create some kind of legacy oracle situation where we can document that knowledge and create that continuity of knowledge, that transfer of knowledge. But as far as marketing in the future, I would love to see us distill. I would love to see us be less fragmented and overwhelming people with this tool and that tool and renaming things the same as what they are, but just calling them something new so that you can try to sell them better. And I'm looking at AEO and GEO right now is really just technically perfect SEO,
Yep.
but let's call it something new and make it exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that we have to meet people where we're at. We have to become a little bit more, but not a little bit more. We have to be genuine, James.
Yeah.
And we have to meet people where they're at and quit trying to shove bloated systems at them, uh, and 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 bloated processes at them, and meet them where they're at and help them win. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that was perfect. I think that was great. Yeah, no, 100%. I think AI gives a lot of businesses ability to create systems and processes in a much faster and easier way, especially for somebody who's not used to creating things like that. And then, yeah, you got to give people simple, straightforward marketing strategies based on where they're at. Like most businesses do not need every single marketing strategy for them. They need a few clear paths to getting leads or customers or whatever their business objective is. And I think people get confused because there's too many options, there's too many ways. And it's just part of we live in this ultra fragmented media landscape where there's so many platforms, there's so many ways to reach people. But what I always tell, especially small businesses to do, is double down on what's already working. So where are you already getting some traffic? Where are you getting some leads from? Where are you getting some sales? If you're getting all those from Google My Business and a lot of leads are coming in through that, or if you're getting a lot from Yelp, like how do we double down on that specific strategy rather than spreading yourself thin across four or five? Because it's really hard to scale and do four or five different marketing strategies really well. It's easier to do one or two really well where you're already getting leads from.
Agreed, agreed. And I think that that goes back to, making sure that whatever you need to double down on, you find the person that's best suited to do that particular task.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. That and just finding somebody you can trust and you can build a relationship with, somebody who doesn't dick around with your money. So those are the things. But I think that's why a lot of businesses still need somebody like Tess who can look at their business objectively and make strategic decisions about what needs to be done because they're not experts in the marketing strategy and the brand strategy. But if they can work with somebody like you that can lay things out for them in a simple, straightforward way and actually have a system and a plan in place to get more of what they need, then they're going to be a lot better off. And so it's about the hard thing, I think, for a lot of businesses is finding people they can trust
yeah,
to go
I think
execute
so.
like that. Yeah.
I mean, I think
Um,
that's across the board, but yes.
yeah, definitely. If you could just give your younger self advice when you're starting out in your career, what would that one piece of advice that you'd give yourself?
Probably to lighten up, to not take myself so seriously and to not seek perfection so much as that's not about not doing a good job. That's about thinking that you have to have everything figured out. That keeps people from pursuing their dreams. So, from not only like if you want to be in business for yourself or you have a business, but just in life itself and whether you want to play the guitar or whether you want to make $1 million with the next great idea, you have to know that most of us don't have it all figured out.
100%. Yeah.
We're it's not that we're fully winging it, but a lot of times we're winging it. You know, we're faking it until we make it. in so many different ways. Maybe not about how to run ads, like you know how to run ads, we're not faking that, but no, trying to get through our days based on everything that's coming in, like, you don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to have every modality, um, you don't have to. You can just move. Have a bias for action.
Yeah, absolutely. Action over inaction's way better. And if you ever do have all the information, usually that opportunity is already passed then. If all the opportunity, all the knowledge and knowing the perfect decision, if you have that, that means other people have that. I mean, that means that opportunity is gone. It's
Is
too late. You
gone.
have to take action with limited knowledge and make the best, bet or action that you can based off of limited knowledge. So I couldn't agree more with that advice is take action, start the business, take some risks, go for it because you're gonna be better off in the long run. And we really have unlimited swinging at the bat in the business space. Is that you only fail if you give up and you stop. So as long as you never give up and you continue to persevere and keep swinging, keep taking swings at the bat, you're gonna eventually win. I truly believe that.
I love that analogy because if you think about it, baseball is a game of failure.
Yeah, yeah.
So, fail
Fail
up.
up 100%. And like baseball has a finite set of, time. I guess we all have finite set of time at the end of the day, but like a game, it's a short game. This is a long
A
game
long
that you get
game.
to play.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely. I love that.
awesome. Uh, feel free to share any ways that, people could work with you or connect with you.
Sure. So you can visit our website at thecognitivecreative.com. You can find my book, The Legacy Link, on Amazon or on Barnes and Noble. It's print on demand. So if you have any interest in that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tess.
Thank you, James. I appreciate it. Great chat.
Awesome.